Welcome back. Today I have 3 true stories on an abandoned hospital. Hope you guys enjoy. As the clock struck midnight, the raucous laughter of my friends filled the air, blending with the clinking of glasses. We were gathered at my place for a wild night of drinking and camaraderie. The warmth of friendship and alcohol wrapped around us like a comforting blanket, pushing aside any thoughts of the outside world. "Let's do something crazy, man." Mark, the life of the party, exclaimed, a mischievous glint in his eyes. The suggestion hung in the air, sparking a sense of adventure and spontaneity among us. Tim, the daredevil of the group, chuckled and said, "You know that old abandoned hospital on the outskirts of town? They say it's haunted. How about we check it out?" The idea sent a shiver down my spine, but it was too intriguing to ignore. As the night deepened, the allure of a thrilling adventure became irresistible. We donned our jackets and set off into the cool night air, stumbling slightly from the alcohol. The deserted streets whispered stories of their own as we made our way towards the hospital. Moonlight cast eerie shadows, and the rustling of leaves played tricks on our imagination. As we approached the looming silhouette of the abandoned building, doubts and excitement waged war within me. "We're really doing this?" I muttered, feeling a mix of nerves and exhilaration. Tim's grin was infectious, and he said, "Come on, it'll be fun. Just think of the stories we'll have to tell." With a nervous chuckle, I followed the group through the rusty gates that creaked ominously as they opened. The interior of the hospital was shrouded in darkness, and we relied on our phone flashlights to guide us through the maze of decaying hallways. As we ventured deeper into the building, the silence was punctuated by our hushed whispers and the occasional creak of floorboards beneath our feet. The walls seemed to hold the secrets of the past, and each room we entered felt like a portal to another time. In one room, we stumbled upon an old, dusty operating theater, frozen in time. The sight of the worn surgical table and forgotten medical instruments sent shivers down my spine. It was as if the hospital itself had never truly let go of its haunted past. As the night wore on, the effects of the alcohol started to blur my senses, dulling the fear that had initially gripped me. Laughter and bravado filled the air, and the hospital's oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift slightly. But just as I began to let my guard down, something strange happened. In a flickering moment, I saw a figure, translucent and ethereal, drift across the room. Panic surged through me, and I let out a startled gasp. "Did you guys see that?" I stammered, my voice shaking. The group fell silent, eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. The ghostly apparition vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving us in stunned disbelief. Our laughter had vanished, replaced by a sobering realization that we were not alone in that abandoned place. Without a word, we rushed out of the room and down the dimly lit hallways, stumbling and tripping over each other in our haste to escape. Fear clung to our heels, driving us forward until we were outside once again, gasping for breath. That was real, right?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "It had to be. We all saw it," Mark replied, his face pale. As we walked back to my place, the atmosphere was heavy with unease and disbelief. The alcohol-induced courage had long since dissipated, leaving us feeling vulnerable and exposed. We vowed never to speak of that night again, as if uttering the words could summon the spirits we had encountered. Despite the haunting encounter, the bond between us grew stronger. We had shared an experience that defied explanation, something that would forever connect us. That night, we learned that sometimes, the line between reality and the unknown is a thin and fragile thread. From that day on, the abandoned hospital became a place forgotten by time, carrying secrets that only we knew. And as the years passed, our story became a whispered legend among us, a testament to the inexplicable mysteries that can be found in the darkest corners of the world. The chill of the autumn night bit at my skin as I stood before the looming silhouette of the abandoned hospital. My friends and I had always heard the rumors that this place was haunted, but curiosity had led us here on this fateful night. With trepidation and excitement warring within me, I pushed open the rusty gates, the creaking noise sending shivers down my spine. The hospital's facade was weathered and decayed, its windows shattered, and its walls covered in layers of grime. As we entered the forsaken building, a heavy silence enveloped us, broken only by the sound of our echoing footsteps. The air was thick with a musty scent, a lingering memory of a long-forgotten past. The dim light from our flashlights revealed desolate hallways lined with abandoned hospital beds and broken medical equipment. The sight was haunting, and an overwhelming feeling of sadness washed over me. This place had once been a haven for the sick and injured, but now it was nothing more than a graveyard of memories. As we explored further, strange sounds seemed to whisper from the shadows. The flickering beams of our flashlights played tricks on our minds, making it difficult to distinguish between reality and imagination. I tried to dismiss the unease that gnawed at me, but an unsettling feeling settled deep in my gut. In one of the rooms, we discovered an old surgical theater, untouched by time. The sight of the rusty instruments and the blood-stained operating table sent shivers down my spine. It was as if the room held the echoes of past surgeries, each one leaving behind a trace of pain and fear. As we continued our exploration, the hospital seemed to come alive with eerie whispers and distant footsteps. My heart pounded in my chest, and my breaths grew shallow. I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, that there was a logical explanation for the unsettling sounds. But then, things took a darker turn. In the corner of my eye, I caught glimpses of fleeting shadows moving along the walls. Each time I turned to look, they disappeared, leaving me questioning my sanity. I kept my findings to myself, afraid of sounding like a fool in front of my friends. As the night wore on, the darkness seemed to seep into my soul, amplifying my fears and anxieties. Our flashlights began to flicker, as if the very essence of the hospital was draining the life out of them. My heart raced, and I could feel a growing sense of malevolence lurking in the shadows. The atmosphere became suffocating, and the hospital felt like a maze, trapping us within its decaying walls. Panic began to grip me, and I suggested that we should leave. But the others were adamant about staying, curious to uncover the secrets that lay hidden within. As we pressed on, the air turned icy cold, and I could see my breath forming frosty clouds in front of me. The sounds grew louder and more ominous, as if unseen entities were whispering terrible secrets into our ears. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, freezing us in our tracks. It came from Sarah, who was standing ahead of us, her eyes wide with terror. We rushed to her side, but she was unable to speak, her body trembling uncontrollably. And then, I saw it too. A ghastly apparition materialized before us, its pale figure hovering just above the ground. Its eyes were hollow voids, and its tattered clothes dripped with a sickly, dark liquid. The sight was too horrifying to comprehend, and I felt my sanity slipping away. In a panicked frenzy, we turned and ran, not looking back until we were outside the hospital's crumbling walls. The night air felt refreshing, and the silence was a welcome respite from the horrors we had witnessed. We made a pact never to speak of that night again, but the haunting memories would forever be etched into our minds. The abandoned hospital had awakened something sinister, something that should have remained dormant in the depths of forgotten history. From that night on, I could never look at hospitals the same way. The memory of the shadows and the apparition haunted my dreams, leaving me with a chilling reminder that some places should never be disturbed, for they hold secrets that are better left undisturbed in the shadows of the forgotten. In the autumn of 1985, when the leaves painted the town in hues of red and gold, a sense of adventure led my friends and me to explore the infamous Willowbrook Hospital. Nestled on the outskirts of our small town, the decaying building had been abandoned for years, said to be haunted by the restless spirits of its tragic past. With the excitement of youth and the thrill of the unknown, we embarked on an unforgettable journey that would forever change our lives. It was a moonless night when we gathered outside the hospital's rusted gates. The wind whispered eerie tales, but the darkness only fueled our determination to prove our bravery. The oldest among us, Mark, led the way, his flashlight guiding our path. Beside him were Mike, the prankster, and Tom, the skeptic who dismissed any notion of the supernatural. As we entered, the hospital's cold aura enveloped us, and the silence weighed heavily on our hearts. The flickering beams of our flashlights created dancing shadows on the peeling walls, giving life to the ghosts of the past. "Who's afraid now?" Mark teased, trying to mask his own unease. "I'm not scared," Mike boasted, but we could hear the quiver in his voice. Tom smirked. "Haunted? More like haunted by your own imaginations." We ventured deeper into the hospital, our laughter echoing through the empty halls. As we reached the upper floors, the eerie silence intensified, and I couldn't help but notice the faint whispers that seemed to dance on the edge of my hearing. "Did you guys hear that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Hear what?" Tom replied dismissively. But I knew I wasn't imagining things. The faint echoes of distant voices tugged at my senses, and a cold chill raced down my spine. I tried to shake off the feeling, dismissing it as my own fears playing tricks on me. We continued exploring, pushing deeper into the hospital's heart. Every now and then, we caught glimpses of something fleeting in the corners of our vision, but each time we turned to look, it vanished without a trace. "What was that?" Mike stuttered, his bravado fading. "Just your imagination," Tom retorted, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. As we made our way to the old operating theater, The air grew thick with an oppressive weight. The room's faded walls seemed to harbor the sorrow and pain of countless surgeries performed long ago. The grim memories of the hospital's past washed over us, leaving an indelible mark on our souls. In the flickering light, I saw a figure standing at the far end of the room. My heart pounded in my chest as I pointed my flashlight in its direction, but the beam passed right through the specter-like apparition. Fear gripped my heart, and I stumbled backward. "Guys, did you see that?" I stammered, my voice quivering. "See what?" Mark asked, glancing around. There was someone there, I insisted. Mike, eager to prove himself, stepped forward and called out, "Hey! Is anyone there?" The air grew tense as we waited for a response, but all we heard was the echo of our own voices. The figure, if it had been there at all, had vanished into thin air. "We should leave," I said, my fear now undeniable. But before we could retreat, the hospital seemed to awaken with a malevolent force. The lights flickered and dimmed, leaving us in near darkness. A low, haunting moan echoed through the theater, raising the hairs on the back of our necks. "What's happening?" Mark whispered, his bravado replaced with uncertainty. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind tore through the room, slamming the doors shut behind us. Panic consumed us, and we scrambled to find a way out. But it was as if the hospital itself had become a labyrinth, trapping us within its cursed walls. The temperature plummeted, and I could see our breath forming frosty clouds in front of us. I tried to call for help, but my voice seemed to drown in the overwhelming darkness. And then, we heard it, a chorus of mournful cries, the voices of the forgotten souls that had once suffered within these forsaken walls. Their anguished pleas reverberated through the theater, driving us to the brink of madness. As the haunting cries reached a crescendo, the hospital seemed to surge with an otherworldly energy. The walls bled with sinister messages, and the apparitions we had glimpsed before surrounded us, their hollow eyes fixed upon us. Fear and desperation gripped us as we realized that we were not alone in the hospital. The spirits of the past had awakened, and they sought retribution for the pain and suffering they had endured. With nowhere to run, we huddled together, our hearts pounding in our chests. As the darkness closed in around us, I could feel an overwhelming sense of sorrow and regret, as if the hospital itself was mourning its own tragic history. Just as all hope seemed lost, a blinding light engulfed us, banishing the darkness and the spirits that had tormented us. The doors flung open, and we stumbled out into the cool night air, gasping for breath. As we fled from the abandoned hospital, we vowed never to return. The horror of that night would forever be etched in our minds, a reminder of the darkness that lurked in the forgotten corners of the world. From that night on, Willowbrook Hospital remained an eerie presence in our town, a place haunted by the echoes of its desolation. Our once unbreakable friendship was forever changed, as we carried the weight of that night with us, haunted by the memories of the spirits that had sought to claim us. We learned the hard way that some places should never be disturbed, for they carry the echoes of their tragic pasts and the ghosts that refuse to be forgotten. Thank you so much for joining me on this thrilling journey through the world of horror and suspense. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to stay updated on all my spooky content. If you're craving more hair-raising tales and heart-pounding adventures, check out the suggested videos on your screen right now.